Rodrigo Duterte in Israel, which starts today and has quite a few Israelis unhappy. Our diplomatic correspondent, Eli Hochenberg, has more.
He called God stupid. He brags about killing people. And even rape jokes are not off limits to him.
Simple as that. No middle ground, no apologies, no excuses.
Perhaps the most flamboyant leader currently in power, and there's definitely competition, is on his way to Israel.
We are so proud that in the first time in the history, the President of the Philippines will visit Israel.
In a first ever visit by a Filipino president, Rodrigo Duterte will get the full show, meeting the president, the prime minister, and also the traditional visit to the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial Center.
Hitler massacred 3 million Jews. Now, there is 3 million... There's a 3 million drug addicts. There are. I'd be happy to slaughter them.
Since making this highly contentious comment, the Filipino leader apologized but made other less problematic remarks, such as publicly declaring he instructed his national security advisor not to buy military equipment from anyone other than Israel. This, however, fails to convince human rights movements.
The state of Israel wants his money to buy weapons from us, but he admires Hitler. Why do we have to host him at our president's residence, at Yad Vashem of all places?
Israel is further expected to try and persuade the ostentatious leader to follow the U.S. footsteps and move the Philippines embassy to Jerusalem. And meanwhile, in Tel Aviv, the Filipino community of about 30,000 people is getting ready, seeking to shed a different light on the controversial president.
Akiva, does this visit harm Israel's image?
I don't think it harms Israel's image. It's good for Israel's foreign relations. It's good for Israel's economy. It's good for Israel's defense. So I don't see anything bad in this. Israel has relations with a long list of countries that have difficult and problematic records of human rights, starting with China and going down all over the place. So I don't see any reason. I don't see Israel conducts its foreign relations according to its own interests, and I don't see any reason why we need to start to be. Why we need to start stopping this now? So if this is a problem, we should cut the ties with China and other countries. I don't see a difference.
I mean, look, there's no image to harm. Second thing, someone who does your job in the Philippines is now asking the spin doctors there, does this harm the Philippines' image? The fact that he's visiting Israel and buying Israel's guns. Look, this guy is a killer. This guy is a pathological violator of human rights. This visit it comes on the tail of the visit by Viktor Orban.
Rogel, so you don't like the policy?
Why does it come on the tail of the visit of the Chinese delegate? Why Viktor Orban?
Because Viktor Orban is not just a delegation. He is the leader of.
But he's a killer. He's a killer.
Well, he's a fascist.
We have relations with all these.
He's an authoritarian.
We have relations with all these terrible countries.
I'll take it even further.
It's a terrible country. There's no problem.
I'll take it even
What's the
further.
problem?
Akiva, I'll take it even further. If you don't approve of the policies of the Philippine president, currently, obviously there are some policies that you don't approve of in the United States, in Russia, in other places that we have relations. So Israel has relations with.
There is an evil axis of right-wing authoritarian fascist leaders. It's Putin, it's Trump, it's Orban. This guy from the Philippines is part and parcel of this gang. So is Netanyahu. They are all against the EU. Netanyahu's visit to the Baltic states just this past week was meant to try...
Netanyahu is part of this evil axis?
Yes, he is also trying to divide the EU, to dissolve the EU. He is in bed with Putin and with Trump, with the same policies of authoritarianism and violating human rights.
He's been in bed, in recent years. Netanyahu, he's visited or either hosted President Vladimir Putin of Russia, Prime Minister Viktor Orban of Hungary that we mentioned, President Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan, and today Rodrigo Duterte. So is there a price that Israel pays for aligning less with this club of democracies from what we used to have in Western Europe?
Israel has to run its foreign relations, its foreign policy according to Israel's interests. And Israel's interests are to have as much as you can relations with as much as countries as you can around the globe. We never took into consideration these human rights issues. Israel never took this into consideration. We are not the United States that can educate the world. We never were.
Allies of many years in the West.
Israel,
France, Germany.
Israel doesn't distance its allies. Israel is standing for its interests, and sometimes it causes friction with its allies. That's the way it goes. And I'll tell you one thing: we're talking about all these terrible people. We have a guy in Britain, Corbyn, who is not a nice guy, has anti-Semitic record. I want to surprise you. If Corbyn is the prime minister, I think Netanyahu should meet him on day one.
Let me tell you,
because that's the interest of the country. That's the only consideration you should have in mind.
Duterte is pro-murdering Philippine citizens. He's pro-soldiers raping women, and he said he'd celebrated Israel's scientists and arms industry are manufacturing weapons.
Why is it different than China? Why is it different than China?
This isn't going to happen with Corbyn. Okay, this is not what Corbyn does.
Why is this different than China? Why is it different than other countries we have relations with for years? African countries, Eastern countries.
Why is it different than China?
It's not different. I am against Israeli arms sales to any regime that uses the arms in order to murder innocent people.
Okay,
that's it.
That's